go for tea because I thought it would be so much nicer to have a pot of tea whilst I was chatting to you, but it's actually really warm today and I was much more in the mood for kombucha. Seeing as I've now finished my degree, the number one question that everyone was asking me is, what are you going to do now? If you've just finished your degree, if you've recently finished your degree, if you finished your degree last year, even if you've just started university, you know, it's a question we're consistently asked and we're able to put off answering it. I always just say, oh, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to wait and see what happens. I've still got time, but actually my degree is now finished and I still don't have a concrete answer to that. And there's a lot of pressure, I think, for us to have an answer to that, where we say, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and all of that is going to lead to this endpoint. But I just want to stress that, I mean, I still don't know entirely what I want to do, and I still don't have a clear idea of what my future is going to look like, and that's okay if you don't too. I think so many of us are in the same boat with this, and a lot of us are floundering a little bit, not knowing, but it's okay. And I think that's important, like, but just that reminder that we're all in the same boat, everyone's thinking the same, most people are in the same boat. So I submitted my dissertation a couple of days ago and I've got to say it was really anticlimactic. Okay, word count is 8796. Okay. Submit assignment. Essay submission complete. And there, just like that, my degree is over, which is so strange. I remember English teacher saying to me right before before I left for university that like handing your dissertation and finishing your degree is the most anticlimactic thing ever, because you hand over your dissertation and then you leave and you're like, okay, well, there we go, I'm done. But even more so, I think now, where you just submit your dissertation online, it's one click and then it's up and it goes off like any other submission. But now I just don't have any academic work and I've like finished my degree. That's so strange. What do? I might go on a walk because I've definitely neglected getting fresh air the last few days. It's a really beautiful day. I'm just gonna watch some YouTube in bed because I can. So 5 days ago I submitted my dissertation and it's really weird because it feels like I only just submitted it, but also it feels like it's been weeks, months since I submitted it because my headspace is just so different, but I'll get onto that. So I've had my YouTube channel for over 7 years now and have chronicled the whole of my academic journey online. Kind of surreal to think that this chapter of my life, you know, kind of like academics, has basically closed. That dissertation was a whole term of work, but it was also a whole degree's worth of work. It was a whole education's worth of work. The whole of your education is instrumental to allowing you to get your degree. It's not like you succeed in that final moment. It's the accumulation of years upon years upon years, you know, the whole of your academic journey, the whole of your education, everything feeds into that final moment. So what did it feel like to finish? The actual moment, as I say, was quite anticlimactic, but in the aftermath, I have just had so much energy, especially immediately as I finished. Like, the day that I submitted, I had an absurd amount of energy. I actually filmed a video on my Instagram, I'll like play it here without the audio, but I was just on my morning walk and I was singing along to musical soundtracks and dancing through fields, and I just felt so alive and carefree. And I don't think I'd realised how much stress I'd been under with this last term and with expectations that I put on myself for my dissertation. Suddenly being out of that, I put everything into perspective, and I think I came back in touch with my priorities, and it was just a relief, I suppose. And it's funny because I really did enjoy working on my dissertation. I was writing on Lewis Carroll's letters and epistolary theory letters. It's something that I'm profoundly fascinated in. I've I've loved letters and literature since I read Frankenstein when I was in year 8. I write letters myself. There's something really special about how letters are able to transcend space and time. The issue wasn't the content, you know, like the learning, the studying, that in itself is really enjoyable, but the pressure that surrounds the dissertation, you know, just the word dissertation as a signifier of stress and pressure and expectations. It's such a loaded word. You know about the dissertation from the beginning of your degree, you know, it's almost capitalized when people say it. People go, oh, your dissertation, you'll have to write that at the end of your degree. Really, at the end of things, it's a glorified essay. It's worth the same as one of your modules, at least for my degree it was, and so it's funny that so much is kind of put into the dissertation. I'm not saying it's not significant, I'm just saying I saw it as something more significant than it maybe was. So as I said at the beginning of this video, there's this pressure now of what to do next. You submitted your dissertation, it's really exciting, you've got that ecstatic energy which I chronicled in this dancing clip, and so what next? You've just kind of got this massive expanse. I've heard the analogy before of standing at the edge of a cliff, you know, the whole way through your education, you know what you're doing, you do your GCSEs and then you do your A-levels and then you go and do your degree and then you finish your degree and suddenly there isn't this path mapped out for you. It's more in your hands, you're more autonomous and you can make a decision. I think there's an awareness of autonomy that maybe isn't there before. We always have autonomy. We have autonomy the whole way through our education. We decide to sit there and study. We decide to put our energy into particular things. You might leave school at 16, you might leave school at 18, you might do an apprenticeship, choose different subjects. We have autonomy the whole way through our education, and it would be wrong to deny that. But at the end of your degree, I think that's when an awareness of that autonomy really comes into play and you become hyper aware of that autonomy. A little bit like Jean-Paul Sartre, who was writing in the 1940s, and I'm going to take him a little bit out of context here, but I think his language is useful. Sartre was an existentialist and said, if there hypothetically is no divine power, then there is no such thing as objective meaning. If there's nothing beyond humans and earth and ourselves, there can be no such thing as meaning. As such, we have to define meaning for ourselves. And for Sartre, humans creating meaning for themselves is founded in freedom, founded in the autonomy to make those decisions. So like freedom and meaning are very much bound up. And in a similar way, like we're suddenly confronted with having to define our own significance, our own meaning, our own values, in essence, ourselves. I think autonomy emphasizes that an awareness that we have the autonomy to do that, we have the autonomy to kind of define ourselves. That's scary. That is scary, and because it is as well, I don't think we have any obligation to rush into it. It's exciting to be able to define your own path and suddenly not know what's going to happen, and we don't have to map out the whole of our future. Like, it's okay not to know what you want to do. Equally though, I do acknowledge that that is a massive privilege for me to be able to say. Okay, so anyway, after that long spiel, what am I actually going to do next? What are my plans? So my plans are quite short term. I've got a general idea of what I want to do over the next 2 years, but I'm still not sure what I'm going to do after that. I have an awareness of my broader life goals and values, but not specific. This coming year, I am taking a year out. I'm taking a kind of gap year, I suppose. I've always spent a lot of time studying, and I've always been really into academics. I'm going to change location because I feel like I've been sat here for a really long time and it might be nice just to change up things a little bit. Also, I'm sorry because the camera's actually a really long way away. As I was saying, we're so saturated in the academic system for so long. I do feel like a lot of my identity is tied up in academics. This is going to sound very cheesy, very cliche, but I just want to understand myself a little better outside of the academic system. I know it will be useful for me in terms of self-growth. Yes, taking a year out, and then I'm planning on doing a master's next year, the year of 2023 to 2024. In terms of my plans for my gap year though, I'm so excited, I can't even tell you. It's not necessarily a conventional gap year. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to look yet, because I want to spend a year basically writing full time. I've said, you know, literally since I was maybe 5 years old, my dream is to write books for a living. Just want to spend a year doing that. I'm in a really privileged position where, because of YouTube, because of the people who watch my videos, I'm in a financially stable position where I can take a year out, and I recognise that that is a massive privilege, and I'm really, really grateful to you for allowing me to be able to do that. But the way I look at it, I was reading the story of Stephen King and how he got to the place where he is. I'm not comparing my writing to Stephen King's because he is a genius, an absolute genius. But when he was first getting into writing, he was living on the poverty line. Him and his wife, him and his family sacrificed like so much so that he could commit the time to writing, gaining those skills and sending things to publications and writing novels. And I just want to spend that time, like really dedicate that time to writing, because it's the thing that I love most is the thing I love doing more than anything else. Yeah, basically that's my plan. And the type of writing I'm going to do is just going to differ. I just want to hone skills basically. So I'll write short stories, poetry, mainly going to be working on novels. As I've said, I'm working with a literary agent on a book at the moment, so that's the current project. I'm writing 2 other books at the moment as well, which I've kind of had to put on the sideline. Just trying to build up a little bit of a writing portfolio, get practice, experiment with different genres. Alongside that, I do want to do a little bit of travelling. In particular, I want to go to New England, visit the homes of my favourite authors like Emily Dickinson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Herman Melville. That's my biggest plan for this year in terms of travelling. Yeah, that's my plan, and then do a master's after that. I was thinking maybe of changing location again and going outside to film the final portion of this video. I asked for some questions on Instagram, just particular things you wanted me to cover in this life update, and so I thought I would answer some of those. I've come outside because the birdsong is so beautiful today, and it really does feel like spring. Well, it is spring, so of course it feels like spring. So I'm just going to write a letter. I've got these really nice Alice in Wonderland stamps, and I'm just going to use them to decorate the letter. I'm writing a letter to Tanya today, who is a viewer. I probably will only use one stamp in the corner. It's really good because stamps mean that you can create really nice letter writing paper of your own. It can be different for every single person, and you only have to buy one book of letter writing paper. I've got some questions on Instagram which I'll respond to. Are you going to keep on making YouTube videos, which lots of people have been asking? Yes, I am planning on continuing making videos. I've said before, I don't know if I can imagine making YouTube videos forever, but I really enjoy making them, and I can't imagine stopping anytime soon. My videos obviously will change just to accommodate what I'm doing, but I do think that they'll end up being quite similar. Okay, next question. Will you move to London? No, I won't. I lived in Exeter. That was a small city, and I still didn't really like living in a city, so I can't imagine living in London. Oh, and then that leads on to other ones, which are you moving out, or are you continuing living with your parents? I am going to be living with my parents for the next year. Sorry, my camera ran out, and I'm going to film this inside instead. So, okay, I was answering the question about staying at home. Yeah, really fortunate, privileged position, because my parents are happy for me to continue staying at home, and I really want to stay at home. Like, I enjoy being with my parents, and I know that's unconventional. I know a lot of people also want to move out. I get on really well with my parents. I'm quite happy and have always been a staunch proponent of, you know, kind of do what works for you, do what's best for you. So even if it's unconventional, even if it's not the standard thing that most people my age would want to do, I am going to be living with my parents next year. So are you planning on travelling? As I say, yes, I am planning on doing some travelling. I'm planning on going to America for a bit, and I want to do a little bit of solo travelling around Europe as well, just a little bit. I want to go to more literary locations and perhaps go on some like writing retreats or areas where I can write. How do you schedule a day now that university is over, after academics and that kind of being the core of your structure? This is a really good question. So I guess like find your main goal, what's going to replace academics, what is your main goal at the moment, and then put energy into that, and then you can create a schedule around that. But equally, it doesn't have to be super structured, super scheduled. Definitely at the moment, especially for this month, I am not kind of sticking to a rigid timetable. How is your book going? So this is an exciting question. So as I mentioned, currently I'm working on restructuring the final third of the book. So this is another draft. After talking with my agent again, we said that it needs more work for the final third. I have had quite a few rounds of edits now, but equally, I don't want to publish it, and I don't want to submit it to publishers until I'm happy with it. It's never going to be perfect. I know that. I'm never going to be 100% happy with it, but at the moment, it's not as strong as I want it to be. It's not non-fiction, it is fiction, but I'm still hoping that it will be helpful for readers, and so I don't want to kind of send it out into the world before I'm entirely happy with that, because people spend a lot of their time reading, you know, it's a big investment of your time to read a book, so I don't want to write a bad book. So hopefully it won't be bad, fingers crossed. What is your definition of success? I think goals to a certain extent are arbitrary. It's this whole thing of delaying happiness. For me, success is tied to happiness and fulfillment, and happiness and fulfillment with regards to productivity, I think can only come when you're enjoying that process. Will academia still be a part of your life? Most definitely, absolutely so. But I'm going to kind of expand academia to refer to education and learning. I definitely still want to be educating myself, learning new things, and I can't imagine that ever not being part of my life just because I love learning so much. Will you be learning to drive? Yes, I will, and I'm so excited to learn how to drive. I didn't learn to drive when I was 17, but I wanted to learn to drive just before the pandemic. That would have been my plan. And then the pandemic happened, and obviously there was such a backlog of lessons and driving tests, and so I just ended up pushing it back a bit. But now I really want to learn to drive because I just think it will bring me so much more autonomy and independence. Is growing up as scary as it seems? No, it is not. Growing up was always my biggest fear. Then it happened, and I mean, I'm not going to say I found it super easy, but it was not what I bigged it up to be. It was so much easier than I thought it would, and I'm excited to be the age that I am. I'm turning 22 this month, and I'm excited to be turning 22. It's scary and it's an old age, but like, it's also exciting. There are new things coming, there are new possibilities. Again, I can do a whole video on that because it's something I really struggled with. Why didn't you choose to do a master's? As I say, I didn't want to do a master's right after leaving uni because I think I needed some space from academics. And finally, what are you most excited for this summer? My family and I are going to Italy, which I'm really looking forward to. I've wanted to go to Italy since I read Call Me By Your Name in 2020. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure it's going to be quite long. I am going to write this letter now.